It's 1845. You're standing ankle-deep in cold mud on the bank of a river in the Pacific Northwest, and you and your business partner have a problem. You've just built a brand new settlement, a few muddy streets, some wooden buildings, big dreams, and you cannot agree on what to call it. You're from Boston. You want to name it Boston. Your partner is from Portland, Maine. He wants Portland. Neither of you will budge, so you settle it like adults. You pull a penny out of your pocket. Best 2 out of 3. He wins, and that is the entire reason the city of Portland, Oregon is not called Boston. A coin. A literal coin. That penny still exists, by the way. It's in a museum, and they call it the Portland penny. Now, a city getting its name from a coin toss is a fun little piece of trivia. But here's the thing that should genuinely unsettle you. That same kind of moment, that same flip of a coin randomness, has decided things far, far bigger than a city's name. It has decided wars. It has decided borders. It has decided which nations rise and which ones simply vanish. We like to believe history is driven by great leaders and grand plans and the slow, inevitable churn of giant forces. And sometimes it is. But sometimes the fate of an entire nation comes down to something as stupid, as small and as random as a coin landing heads instead of tails. So let's talk about the times the universe flipped a coin and a country lived or died on the result. And to really feel how insane this gets, we have to start with the most famous one. The single most expensive wrong turn in human history. Picture it. It's June 28th, 1914, in Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is riding through the city in an open-top car, and a group of assassins is waiting for him. Here's the part everyone forgets, though. They already failed. Earlier that morning, one of them threw a bomb at the Archduke's car. It bounced off, rolled under the car behind, and exploded, injuring some people but missing Ferdinand completely. The plot was blown. The assassins scattered. One of them, a 19-year-old named Gavrilo Princip, gave up, wandered off, and went to get a sandwich. I'm not exaggerating. The man who was about to trigger the deadliest chain of events in modern history went to buy lunch. Meanwhile, Franz Ferdinand, being weirdly casual about the whole almost getting murdered thing, decided to go visit the people who'd been injured in the bombing. His driver was given new directions, but nobody actually told the driver the route had changed. So he took the old route, realized his mistake halfway down a side street, and stopped the car to turn around, right in front of a little shop. The exact shop where Gavrilo Princip happened to be standing, finishing his sandwich. Princip looked up, and there, 5 feet away, stopped, stalled, completely exposed, was the man he had given up on killing 2 hours earlier. He stepped forward and fired twice. Franz Ferdinand was dead within minutes, and that wrong turn, that one wrong turn by one confused driver, lit the fuse on the First World War. 17 million people died. 4 entire empires, the Austro-Hungarian, the Ottoman, the German, and the Russian, collapsed and disappeared off the map. The borders of Europe and the Middle East were redrawn from scratch, lines we are still fighting over a century later, and it set the stage for the Second World War 20 years after that. All of it. Because a driver took a wrong turn and a teenager wanted a sandwich. If that car had not stalled in that exact spot, the entire 20th century, the one that built the world you're living in right now, might be unrecognizable. Heads, the Archduke goes home. Tails, the world burns. The universe flipped tails. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a wrong turn. That's not really a coin flip. Fair enough. So let's talk about the times the coin was flipped by the weather itself. In the year 1274, Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis, ruler of the largest land empire in human history, decided he wanted Japan. He sent an enormous invasion fleet across the sea. The Japanese samurai, brave but hopelessly outnumbered, braced to be wiped out. And then, the night before the final assault, a typhoon rolled in and shredded the Mongol fleet. Thousands of ships, gone. 7 years later, Kublai Khan tried again, with an even bigger fleet, one of the largest naval invasions in history, right up until D-Day. And, unbelievably, it happened again. A second typhoon appeared and destroyed the second fleet. The Japanese were so stunned that they decided these storms could not possibly be luck. They were divine. They called them the kamikaze, the divine wind, sent by the gods to protect Japan. And that belief, that Japan was a sacred land that simply could not be conquered, shaped the country's entire identity for the next 700 years. A national myth, born entirely from the weather having good timing. Twice. Or take the time a fog bank might have created the United States. August 1776. The American Revolution is only weeks old, and it is going badly. George Washington and around 9,000 of his troops are trapped on Brooklyn Heights, backed up against the East River, with the most powerful army and navy on Earth closing in around them. If the British attack, or just sail up the river and block the water, the war is over. Washington is captured or killed, and the United States dies in its crib before it ever really exists. So Washington makes a desperate call. Under cover of darkness, he starts secretly ferrying his entire army across the river to Manhattan. But there's a problem. The sun is about to come up. Half his men are still on the wrong side, completely exposed, and daylight will hand them straight to the British. And then, right at sunrise, a thick fog rolls in over Brooklyn, and just sits there, hiding the whole operation. The British couldn't see a thing. Washington got every last man across. Hours later, the fog lifted, the British advanced, and found an empty camp. Now, weather is weather. But a fog showing up at the exact hour Washington needed it, on a late summer morning, is the kind of thing that, if you put it in a movie, people would call lazy writing. Heads, the army escapes, and the revolution lives. Tails, it's captured, and there is no America. The fog rolled in, and sometimes the coin isn't the weather or a wrong turn. Sometimes it's just somebody being careless. September 1862, the American Civil War. General Robert E. Lee writes out a detailed secret battle plan, Special Order 191, and copies are sent out to his commanders. One of those copies goes missing. A few days later, a Union soldier walking through a field where the Confederates had recently camped spots a piece of paper lying in the grass, wrapped around 3 cigars. He picks it up, presumably hoping mostly for free cigars, and slowly realizes he is holding Robert E. Lee's entire battle plan, the exact positions and movements of the Confederate Army, handed to the enemy by pure accident. The Union used it to intercept Lee at the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history. That battle stopped Lee's invasion of the North, and it handed Abraham Lincoln the victory he needed to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which in turn kept Britain and France from stepping in to back the Confederacy. A dropped piece of paper, wrapped around 3 cigars, helped decide the outcome of the Civil War and the future of slavery itself. Somewhere, an officer lost a document, and the universe flipped a coin. Now, here's where I have to be honest with you, because this is the part that actually matters. A historian watching this is currently gritting their teeth, because history is never only the coin flip. The First World War wasn't caused by one wrong turn. Europe was a powder keg of alliances and arms races and nationalism, and if it hadn't been Sarajevo, it might have been something else. The American Revolution had a lot more holding it up than one foggy morning. All of that is true. The deep forces are real. But here's the thing those deep forces don't do. They don't schedule themselves. A powder keg doesn't pick its own moment to explode. It needs a spark, a trigger, a small random human moment to actually go off. The keg was real, but a teenager with a sandwich lit the match. History is the deep current, but the coin flip decides exactly when and where and which way the river suddenly turns. And those tiny differences compound forever. And that's the part that should sit with you, because it doesn't stop at nations. Think about your own life for a second. The country you were born in, with its specific borders, its language, its laws, exists in the shape it does because of 1,000 coin flips that landed before you were ever alive. A war that went one way instead of the other. A fog that rolled in. A border drawn by a tired man with a pencil and a deadline. Your own grandparents meeting because one of them happened to miss a train. You, the specific you watching this right now, are the result of an almost infinite chain of moments that could have gone the other way, and just didn't. We tell ourselves history was inevitable, that it could only ever have happened this way, because honestly, it's comforting. It's a little terrifying to think the whole thing is balanced on the edge of a spinning coin. But it is. Every map, every border, every nation, including yours, is just the result of a long, long series of flips that happened to land the way they did. So the next time someone tells you history was destiny, that it was always going to turn out this way, just remember the penny in the mud, the wrong turn in Sarajevo, and the fog over Brooklyn. History never had a plan. It just kept flipping a coin, and we are all still living in the result. And now you know.